Bah. I often, when I see animals, I make the sound. It drives Ronnie crazy. So if I see a sheep, I do a sheep noise. I see a cow, I do a cow noise. I do the whole thing. You?
Today we have Peter Koenig, Ali.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a child with you all the time. You're reining me in. Yes, we've got Peter Koenig on, and we are going to discuss a lot of things, of which we're going to discuss love in business.
Love making in business.
No, love in business, Bambos. I know where your head's at. We're going to do that and a lot more on
A
Wonderful Chaos.
Love in business.
Love in business. This has been a bit of a crazy day. We actually had a show planned for 3 p.m., which both of us forgot about.
I was sick. I don't know about you.
I saw at 3:30. I saw this. You have a show that just went live half an hour ago, and I freaked. So Stephen Rudolph, who was supposed to be our guest, I phoned him, and he's the sweetest individual. He said, "Andy, where are you feeling it?" I told him that we found Peter, and that he said, "I still can do the show." And he said, "What are you feeling?" And I said, "You know what? Peter has an event coming up in a month, and I know that it's great to get publicity and to get people aware of it. So if he was cool, then we delay the show." And he said, "Great, let's do it." And I really felt this almost serendipity nature. I could hear in his voice, he was happy the change happened because he was welcoming what the universe was bringing us. And he said, "This sounds great." So it really felt good. It's always, I love being in connection with people that aren't determined by outcome, but sitting with what's the reality at this moment and then letting it unfold. And that was really special.
Nice.
So, and I didn't like the title of the show with him. So I said, "Listen, let's just call tomorrow and we'll find
What was the title?
I don't even remember. It was living your true self. What happens when you don't live your true self? It was a bit one of those vague topics that I thought we can do better.
Nice.
And
so
then
we bought Peter Koenig.
And so we got Peter because
second time round.
And Peter, I don't know if he is aware of this. I think I might have mentioned it to him because I phoned him last week. His is the most viewed episode of all time on A Wonderful Chaos.
Really?
It is.
It's probably me. I watched it like 50 times.
And you watched it. You're dragging the numbers up. You're like, did I get it? Did I get it right the first time? But no, we did very, very well on that show. People really enjoyed Peter, and Peter is sort of this secret individual in the world because I called him last week to thank him. Because I think after years of learning from his ways, I started finally figuring out like how he lives. And I see that in a way I could identify part of what I saw in myself finally in him. Like, wow, I want to do great, but not at the cost of losing myself. And that's what I've seen in Peter. So Peter welcomes the energy in.
You kind of described yourselves as Forrest Gump.
Yeah, exactly. Earlier on the show, I kept laughing because I'm like, he's sort of like Forrest Gump. He just started running in one direction and just going. And then he's like, "Hey, whoever wants to, I'm not trying to get you to join, but somehow, wow, there's a group behind me." And so in some way, I feel like he's just done his thing. And there's people that sort of found their way into his life. And he's like, "This is great." And then if they leave, he's like, "Oh, this is great." So there's never codependency. And not only that, he's so strong about, and he lives this word, which I've often through the years had different feelings towards, but when he presents it to me now, I feel very, very beautiful. He says, if one isn't coming from their source and working with me, then I don't really want to work with them. Because what he's saying is, you're needing what you can't find in yourself through me, which means you're not living your full potential. So live your full potential, and hopefully we can find a way that aligns with what I'm doing, and then we're both living our fullest. And I often give it different words, but when I heard him say that, we can see if he agrees with my interpretation of it. But I really feel that he's finding people and inviting them to rise up to whatever it is that they really want to be doing, and then seeing if there's a match, as opposed to what people often do is, I need someone who can do this, and then I'm going to fit you into a position you really don't like and resent me for because you're not doing something you enjoy. You know, and then my joke to him was like, did you find the person that loves doing controlling and running the numbers? And he says, of course not. You know, how do you find the people who don't necessarily gravitate to jobs that maybe are as considered as easy to find? But we can talk about that maybe as well. Why we have him on the show now is because in just over a month, he's having what is called the 7th Money and Business Partnership Conference on April 11th. And
it's going to be online, right?
It's going to be online. It's a mixed, because there will be some Congress that's being held in Austria. There'll be people gathering there. It's state of the art. It's an upgrade from how he's normally doing it. He's invited a team of very well-known individuals to come together to live what I mentioned earlier, their source, and to put together an event where basically he's saying, this love in business, if we don't figure that out, then we're going to extinction. And I really would say he puts it that strongly. He's not sugarcoating anything. He's not doing the let's do love and business because it feels good. He's like, if we don't figure this one out, then we're going to live in this vicious cycle of how do we degrade the planet to the point that there's nothing left? And then we're all looking at each other saying, God, how did we get here? As if we didn't already know that.
We're already here.
We're already here. And yet he's now saying, if I've got a few years left in my life, let's go for it. So that Congress is coming up on April 11th, and he's looking to invite, and his expectation is to have about 100,000 people there. And that's just a beautiful intention to set in the world and see who finds them. And that's where we are.
You know, some people want to walk for 7 days. Other people want to
exactly
100,000 people.
I don't know. I think I may have mentioned that I upgraded, just in case those listeners are watching. I'm doing my walk along the west coast of the Netherlands, and I said I was going to do it in 6 days, but I did some quick calculating, and there was a 37-kilometer day, and I said no. We cut that into 2 days, so it's a 7-day journey instead of a 6-day journey.
Love it.
So that's where we are. And I think it'd be great to welcome him on just as a tagline for the conference, because I think that was really beautiful. Is that the tagline is creating love and business, the new bottom line. And with that, I think it'd be great to welcome on Peter Koenig.
Hello, Peter.
Hello, Peter.
Oh, hi, guys. Thank you so much. I could listen to you all day, both of you. First of all, you're a big laugh, and then you express things so well. I feel you hardly need me. You're doing it all for me.
Not. Andy does all the talking.
Well, let's agree. I had like a half an hour to print this document out because I had it on my desktop for a week. And when I opened it, all I read in the first sentence was the Club of Rome, and I thought, oh my God, something with that level of detail, I got to put it down for another time. So now I pick it back up again.
First of all, let me just say, I'm really touched by what you said about Stephen. So I just want to say a deep thank you to him, and he feels very much present to me from what you just explained. I don't want to let this go without thanking him.
I also, I get emotional, and the way he was so present with me through this process, he asked me, Andy, who would you want to have on the show? And there's a moment in time when you feel so bad that you don't want to say, I'd rather have him, as if the other would feel rejected. But what he held such a beautiful space for me. And he just said, what feels right? He didn't go for the put one. And I just said, wow, it feels right to go with you, given that we said this event's coming. And then he said, yeah, it sounds great. So I got very close to him through that interaction, which speaks to the subject of this talk, because I recognized in him the way I see myself interacting with the world, but I don't see it often reflected back to me. It's almost a Buddhist practice. If I had to give it words, it's like, I love you unconditionally, and whatever makes sense. And I'm not going to attach to an outcome, because then I'm going to force it, and maybe it's not the right time. So let's allow it to unfold. And I just don't see that happening often. People don't have that space.
Well, you just described the spirit of this whole initiative with my Congress.
Yeah.
What we're inviting people into is that very space. So he'd be the first person or the next person I'd want to invite, because he would understand it totally. And I feel this is the energy that, the attitude and the energy that's really being called for right now.
Yeah. Help me understand, because I've known you for years. as you know, as mentioned in the last show, that you're mentioned in both books. The second book is basically stealing all of your work and just using it slavishly, the Wounded Healer. And what I like love about you is that you often create an alternate reality, which takes time for people to catch up to. We often say a visionary is a person who lives a reality ahead of its completion. So you're in this other reality living it, and then somehow the world finds its way to you instead of you trying to accommodate it. So where do you transition from, I'm going to help the world understand that money is a construct that's confusing you and you can figure out a better way if you understood projection and reclamation, and then you move it to business? When did that happen?
Oh, that happened. Actually, it almost worked the other way because I came out of business, of course. Okay. I was working for, in the 1970s, I was working for one of the largest American multinationals looking after their real estate in Europe. Oh, wow. And so I knew how to handle conventional business very well. I was coming out of that area. But after that, I had what some people might call a spiritual epiphany, which changed the way I was seeing, the way I was doing things, but not just me, the way I saw business was doing things. I had a deep level of understanding, and that changed everything for me. And then this phrase, creating love and business, actually came to me in the early 1980s. And I saw I had nothing better to do than that. So at that time, I actually went back to my business school and to other business people and said, this is, thinking, and this is the difficulty of being in advance, thinking, well, it's so obvious to me, it will be obvious to everybody.
Yeah.
And then when I started to speak about, just use the word love, it was like, no way.
I wrote it in the title today, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm really writing the word love in business. I could kind of see all of the ideas of what I thought people project into it. Like, absolutely. Oh my God, another person, selling me something.
Yeah. And so, combining love and business and money, but it was obvious to me at some, back in the early 1980s, this has got to come at some point. It's like it came earlier with what I'm mentioning with the Club of Rome. They were very, very aware of the path that we're on. And I was reading up all of that stuff at that time. And and I saw then the role of money and the relationship to money, which you know so well too, and are referring to, was like the elephant in the room. It's like every other subject is being dealt with, but that subject is sort of pushed aside. We don't want to look at that. And I was aware already then that this bringing it together with love and business was essential to turn around the pattern of behaviors which we've all conditioned by, and which we're all still being moved by. Yeah. And so when I started to express this, I got enormous pushback. It's getting less and less and less, but there's still, of course, pushback. But now is the time. It's so obvious, or obvious to me, to really come out with it, because it if it's not now, it's probably never. Yeah. So that's the purpose of this Congress.
I often have, because the way I work is through just love. And that, in the sense, like when I talk to a client, there's no client I don't end a call with not saying I love you.
Yeah.
And it's weird, because if you try to explain it to people, then they don't quite get it, because they think they love you as I love you unconditionally, even if you say let's not work. It's not I say I love you because in saying I love you, I get some leverage over you, because now I create an uncomfortable situation if you want to separate. And I see that people don't understand there is a love that's just, I love you, and the fact we get to spend time together, and that there's an exchange of money is just a formality of just so I can run my life. And it's such a weird, and I try to explain it to people, and I've seen they just, and even when I work with people and we have projects where we split money, they often want to say, this is the percentage you get, and this is the percentage I get before we go in.
Yes. Yeah.
And I say, I don't work that way. And it confuses them because they're like, no, then we're going to fight. And I said, why would we fight? Actually, if we're fighting and we don't trust each other, then I don't want to work with you anyways.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
Well, this was, of course, this was when I was growing up. I don't know when you were growing up, but this was the dumb thing. You separate your personal life and your professional life. Why would you want to do that? Because the assumption was, when you're dealing with money, you're going to be fighting together.
Yeah. I've heard, I mean, that's the biggest belief, is that money is the road to bad relationships. Like that's the that's the elephant in the room.
Yeah. So to keep yourself, friendships, you mustn't have money come in there.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, I've turned it around, I've turned it around myself, saying, why would you want to work with your enemies?
Yeah, exactly.
You're spending most of your time at work. Why would you want to have you be working with enemies?
I was working with a client last year that I worked a lot of extra for, and they were in a really bad state. And they said, Andy, I'd like to pay you more for last year. And I said, you're in a bad state right now. I want you to, we'll figure it out next year. You just, I want you to be present. And then, and she said, no, I'm paying you more. And it was really funny because most people would be like, oh my God, more money. And I'm like, no, I want you in the right state of mind and not reactive. And then it brings us closer. There's gratitude all the time.
Yeah.
And I know it's so hard for people to get that.
Well, it needs patience. As I was saying, I've been at it for more than 30 years now. And as I said, I had to learn. This was my first learning, and it took me quite some time. Gosh, I can see what would help a person and that what needs to happen. But I can't force it. I can't force anything, can't push anything. It needs the right timing.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of art to get the timing right. I wouldn't even say I'm brilliant at it now, but I'm certainly a lot better than I used to be. Patience, what I'm putting in motion now with the Congress, I don't have any, I'm not unrealistic. I'm not expecting, vast things to happen instantly, but you never know. Yeah. Things can move very fast nowadays, much faster than they used to. Yeah. So just do what needs to be done, really.
Peter, how do you implement this? Because in a way, you're talking about a deep awakening, or am I assuming wrong?
No, what you're talking about is right. And there's a part of me, Bambus, and this is the key, the part of me of accepting that I don't know. It's like, I don't know how to do it. I'm way, with this is the biggest project I've ever tried to run in my life. And actually I'm way over my head. But I have a certain, I have an experience of being over my head, which has helped me. I've always jumped in the deep end from, in all my business experience, I've put myself in the deep end into things that I don't know how to do. And somehow I'm still alive and I've managed to find out how to do them. But that's at one level, but I'd like to answer at another level. What I've been doing with my team, so I've formed a new team from scratch. They're all people who know my work and they're sort of selected, but also self-selected. And actually, I explained to Andy in a phone call we had 10 days ago, I'm creating a new kind of organization, because most organizations, when they're created or set up, or initiatives, enterprises, what normally happens is that the person initiates something and then goes around looking for the people to recruit for the jobs that they think need to be done. And with what I call my source work, I don't want anybody in my field who isn't loving what they do. So I start from a very different way. I'm inviting people into my field. I invited 80 people, actually. That was my first step. I invited 80 people in my community and said, this is my vision. Who would like to help me with my vision? And out of that, 32 people replied with some of the things that they would like to do. And out of that, I picked about half of them and said, well, we'll come in and we'll see what you like to do. And we'll see how we can get started together without actually having a plan.
Yeah.
And that's a very different, it is a wonderful chaos. I mean, it's actually chaotic to start off with. Everybody who's taken part will agree, you know, because anybody who's used to doing things the normal way with project management will go nuts.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody there telling them what they must do and when. We're all sort of figuring out, but knowing that we've got a set date, we've got a combined mission to get this Congress out on the 11th of April with certain things which are highly ambitious. This Congress, there's nothing like it in the world at the moment. It was intended as a hybrid, live and digital, but we intended it that knowing that if we're going to be badly locked down, it'll go out digitally anyway. So it was definitely set for these dates. And what we've designed, what's totally or largely new, I won't say we're the first, is that we're offering a large interactive space where people can actually bring in their own workshops, bring in their own things that they want to share, discussions. And we're having, that's on one platform. We have another platform. It's quite a complex thing we've set up where people can meet, and there's going to be a ground rule, no discussion. You just help each other. So we've got different rooms with different ground rules. We got an open space section where people can come in and share information, have discussions. We've got a meeting rooms where the ground rule is you don't discuss anything here. You just meet each other and just figure out how to help each other and create partnership. And then we've got a program space which will be streaming out. We're planning a celebrity, timetable with celebrities in there. So this is going beyond what's out there already, like summits, which are just out to inspire people, but then, they're very, very good. I'm not criticizing, but they leave people with inspiration. But then you go out with your inspiration and you say, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And the goal...
It sounds like you're giving people an experience, hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Hands-on, where they're co-creators. This is the key thing. And I don't know whether it's going to be successful. This is the point.
What do you mean? Everything is successful.
Well,
it's successful because whatever it is, it's successful just you're doing it.
But I mean, you know what I mean. It's got I have certain intentions there, but it's an emergent process. Yeah. So of course it's successful already in terms of the way we are forming it, the way we're putting out, and the way we're streaming. In that sense, absolutely. But in terms of what people might expect and etc., and what they're projecting onto it, there's no guarantees anywhere. It's emergent. Yeah.
What is the most stressful part of organizing this?
For me personally, I'm in the middle of this potential stress right now. I've got thousands of people I want to share that with. I mean, really, for me personally, it would be thousands through their networks, but I've got probably about 100 people that go through my mind I want to contact personally.
Yeah.
And as I start contacting people, I get more stuff coming back at me. So it's a much slower process than I intend, because as I start to step out, I'm getting more coming back, and I have to deal with what's coming back before I can get out more.
Yeah.
So this is where it's stressful, but it's what you were saying in your introduction, Andy. I'm not blown away with that. I just have to deal. This is my process, which I deal with, and one of the key things I've decided for myself is I'm actually a slow person. I'm not a quick person. And I'm not planning to speed up, because the quality needs to stay.
Yeah.
So even if I can't manage, a tenth of the people that I want to contact by the 11th of April, so be it. Yeah. I can only do so much as what I can physically and mentally do. So that's where I love myself enough for that.
Yeah, self-care.
Yeah.
There was a few things you said that I wanted also to touch on. When Bambas asked you the question, what does it look like? It reminded me of a moment when I was not trusting in the political the political system in the U.S. And I saw a trap that I didn't fall into it, but I saw a potential trap. And it was the following. Someone said, well, what do you suggest then? What would be better? So, I said, I just see this two-party system. It's like you got democracy, there's freedom. You can choose between two things. And I'm like, that never felt good to me. And then they're like, okay, then what do you suggest? And then I'd be like, and the humor was that I knew if I started to suggest things, then there would be an argument around which one was best. And I have to fight again, which is exactly the mentality I wanted to leave behind. There was no dialogue. It was a competing of ideas.
Right.
And I think part of what I hear in the, call it the mind shift, is that if we look at competing of ideas, which has brought us to where we are right now, it's just reliving the paradigm, but with a competing idea.
Oh, Andy, you speak right to the heart of where we are. If you look at our logo, Money and Business Partnership Congress, the most important part of the logo, and it took me quite a while to explain this to my team, the most important part is the and. The and. And this is exactly what you're saying. In other words, up to now, all the political systems and all the systems we have are either or, either or. So I can tell you the ground rule, we have ground rules in these different rooms, in these different places. The ground rule for our program of streaming for the various speakers we'll have, and you will like this, is that we're doing it like so-called improv. The ground rule for them is that they must listen to the previous speaker and they have to build on what this previous speaker has. We have a theme for them anyway, which will run right the way through like a thread through the 4 days. But the essence is that we're moving away from debates into building and building and building. And we're inviting each participant to build their own thread of love in business during these 4 days with their own timetable and their own program. Take responsibility for their life during the 4 days. The central theme is creating love in business. So how do you want to create love in your work life?
Yeah.
How do you want to how do you figure out to do more of what you love in your life? So this is the opportunity to join others in a large congress to just work very personally and individually on your own thread and have all these impulses come from other people who are doing the same, the program we're offering and so forth. That's the whole context of what we're offering here.
Yeah, I guess that paradigm, which I understood as a kid, and as an adult, you get more nuances. It's always been so difficult for me to explain to somebody that once I engage you in the right and wrong battle, I lose because it's exactly counter to the paradigm I'm asking you to join me in. Like, it's like, don't you understand that there's an implicit assumption you're making that this is how discussion should happen, as opposed to what makes that we've talked this way all this long, right? And the framers of the U.S. Constitution, of course, had the idea because they started 50 states or whatever that didn't trust each other. And now all of a sudden we said, oh, how do we build a system which just is based on distrust? Well, we have political discourse, which obviously has evolved into political identification, which is just nonsensical because now there's no dialogue, right? That's how far we've come. Yeah,
that's how far we've come, and I like to see it this way. And some people find it controversial, but I like to see it. This is where we are at this moment in time in our evolution. It just, if we take a snapshot, it's where we are with our consciousness collectively. And my feeling is that to move beyond this, we need to really recognize where we are and be grateful for where we are, including where we've come from and our forefathers come from, and see that, even this talk we're having together couldn't happen without the present system, with all of its warts. And we really need to to use that as a springboard and say thank you for everything that's here right now, even if it's not liked by many people, because that's the starting point. And we need that as a springboard to be able to spring into a new system. And this is the starting point for me, that we, if we continue with this system as it is right now, it's very clear Club of Rome stuff. We're heading towards really disaster, a lot of suffering, let's put it that way. But it's the system that we've got up to this stage of evolution, and now we need to use it as like a springboard to be able to jump to the next system.
Yeah. And what you're saying is
system we're heading towards now.
I couldn't agree with you more, because as we all both know, when we talk about like polarity and the pendulum, once you say that this is bad, that what brought us here was bad, all of a sudden you have to have a revolution to get it out, and then it just flips back and forth. So in saying this is great for what it did to this point, and now it's time to move on, then at least we have a chance of it not flipping back and forth, right? That's the
so that's what we're trying to we're representing with this Congress, the new, with many different new elements simultaneously. Because what I figured out is you can't just work on 1 or 2 sustainable development goals and do well with them and expect the whole system to shift with that, because you'll be pulled back by everything else. So you have to change many things simultaneously. And that's you mentioned altered state. That's the kind of altered state that we are offering to those people who will join us, who are ready for this.
Yeah.
And so we're actually, I and my colleagues are, we're actually working in this new state already. And I think you are probably too.
Yeah.
But we're kind of between 2 worlds a lot of the time.
I know.
And it feels very uncomfortable.
I find that the world, strangely enough, I've found more resonance in Asia living this way than in Western culture, because there is a degree to which I think people see you. They feel your energy. They know what you're about, and they trust that. When they really feel it comes from some integrity. It reminds me, I was working in a German company where they're IT. I worked for them for several years, and the HR guy was always very money oriented, very, very like uncomfortable around the subject of money. And then at one dinner table discussion, I said, we gotta have a discussion. We've known each other for years, and I said, I love you. Do you understand that I love you? And then he shifted away. No, I love you. And whatever it is, it's okay. It was exactly that paradigm of we cannot be present and be on and loving. And even if we didn't work together, that's not the point. The point is we've been through so much that we can be here together and just share that appreciation. And then he had to shut it down. He just had to. And then, of course, a week later, I was working within the same organization. And I call up the Asians and I said, listen, I'm going to be in the area. Whatever you figure out, let's just do it. And then we're like kids in a candy store, like, Andy, you 2 days. I'm like how much do you want? I said, I don't care. Tell me what you can afford so that we can spend time together. So it was like this. And then I went. It was one of the nicest times in my life. It was like I worked and had joy and had friendship. We talk regularly. And if we find another chance to work, great. And if they can pay, great. If they have just enough to get me there, then hey, that's what it is right now. That's the energy that I miss so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's you're speaking my language, of course. I mean, this is what we want to be. What needs to go out more. Yeah.
Bambos asked you a question. What does it look like? Right? Which is a kind of a more direct question that I'd want you. If you close your eyes, share with me, if you can, what is the feeling you'd have if you walk into the organization that you see the future would look like? You don't need to tell me it is this or that, but give me a sense of what you're feeling.
Family. but I mean family in a good way, of course, not
the chosen
not
chosen family.
dysfunctional. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say every business is like a family, Peter.
Yeah.
There's not. Yeah,
You
you're
know,
saying.
let me share something else
But
about.
slow down a second,
sorry.
because that's
Yeah.
really what you just said was so profound. I don't want to jump over it too
Okay.
quickly. You're telling me, and you go in to that office and you feel like you're coming home to family.
Mm. Yeah.
You realize how beautiful that is if you just like see and embrace what that really is. What you're really striving for is that, wow, you get to make whatever you do the place that you feel most at home.
Yeah, exactly.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
How do you define family, Peter?
I see it. That's a great question, Bambus. I really feel it not in a narrow clan way. It's more like an extended community, where as Andy, as you're saying, one is at home and one feels totally like protected, safe, secure, creative, and feeling that the people around me are actually we're doing this with each other, we're supporting each other in all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, as you speak, I feel connected, because that's where I feel like that's the only thing I want to invite in my life and work at nowadays.
Yeah.
And I know exactly the places where that's felt, and I know the places where it's less felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I may, let me share something with you. I mean, a little bit more information on the Congress, but it's beyond that. The home base for this Congress is a place in Austria called Alpbach. It's a little village in the mountains, which was where I sourced this series. And it is sourced there because it's from the 1900s, it's the center of thinking of many of the scientists, artists, economists like von Hayek, Schrödinger with his cat and also Francesco Varela created Mind and Life there. And when I went there, I felt this incredible connection to these thinkers and this energy. And so I saw, and it wasn't the reason I sourced it there, but I sourced the series there. And it's been like home, and it still is home. And I'm referring to it now because, it's completely locked down at the moment. They've got the South African virus. Everything is closed. But it's so important to me that I'm bringing my team there. Whatever happens, me and my team are going to be there as family. We're going to stream the Congress out from there. Whatever happens, we're going to be there. So at least 10, 20 of us are going to be in Alpbach on the 11th of April to the 14th of April to be there as family to do what we need to do to get the Congress going. And we will be streaming out live from there. They've got a wonderful little Congress center there. And that's where we were I was planning to bring 50 financial experts, money experts originally, and that can't happen now, but it will in the future. I want the key guys who are working in the woodwork somewhere with new currencies, new coins, new stuff, not those that are reactive to the system, because there are many of those around, but who are beyond aversion to the system and addiction to the system, but have already working on the new system. This is the vision, to bring them together to Alpbach, to create the new money that we will have with the new system. So this is still very much in here.
I'd love to go to some of the comments coming in. Bola Long, who is in South Africa as we speak, says, "We don't own any viruses here in South Africa." I love that. That's a beautiful one, Bola Long. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, Bola Long. It's just, these are arbitrary descriptions.
I know. We know. Please. I just had to get that in because it was just too funny.
Said the British.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And we have Bolong also asked if you're familiar with a Jack Fresco. Have you met
No,
him? Okay.
no.
Apparently that's somebody who has, I guess, similar ideas coming out. We actually had a very interesting person that came through Bolalang that was named Colin Turner, who actually does some work where he says he calls a gratitude space, where he basically asks people to pay in gratitude online, where they nominate a person and then they give gratitude coins, and it's the currency of gratitude, which is really quite sweet. So Bolalang is often inviting us to bring in people who are looking at alternative economies and things.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing with this too.
Yeah.
And there are quite a number of people who've come up with the same idea of gratitude coins right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting how these ideas actually spawn in different places at the same time.
Yeah,
as you probably know, I'm not sure if you do, I think I mentioned it last time, I also have a new coin in the process where we have a small pilot where I live in Switzerland. But it's going to be a few years before this gets out, because it's
I was just about to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Peter, the word love is still kind of vibrating in me, and also as a feeling in business, and we talked about family, but you can have love and also not be in a good place sustainably. So how do you balance that out?
Well, if you're referring sustainability to money,
are we doing the projection?
Yes, probably.
I was gonna say, we're going back to our first show. So let's be clear. Ambos is broke. How is he going to love anything if he can't afford to turn the lights on at the house?
Because the more love. What did you say?
You said thanks,
Andy. Okay. When you're in this energy of love, there's nothing missing, and you're attracting resources. I use as an example here, good friends of mine are the first biological wine growers in Switzerland. And if you're ever in Switzerland, I'll invite you to come and visit them. And it's incredible. They have this energy of love. They produce incredible, not just wine, herbs. You feel you're coming into paradise, actually.
Yeah.
And what this does, with and without money, they wouldn't need any money. People come and give them things all the time. Yeah. And they have volunteers coming in just to be in their fields, because the energy there is so great that people want to come and pick grapes and do all sorts of stuff. People will do anything. They'll clean the toilets, they'll do anything there, because the energy is so great. And this is really the vision. So this is sustainability. Sustainability actually comes from the passion of doing what you love. And when I wrote my book, 30 Lies About Money, you won't believe this, but my best example at the time of sustainability without making money was Amazon. In 2001, Amazon had not yet turned a profit. And people were saying, will they survive? Would you believe it?
Yeah, I remember that.
They were saying, will they survive? We're not sure. They're not capable of making a profit. And I said in my book, it's absolutely not dependent on making a profit. It's dependent on the passion and the energy, which is going behind it.
Yeah.
And they haven't proved it through now being the richest company in the world, but they have sustained. So they're sustaining pretty well.
Yeah.
So we can't say that right now they are living the love in business.
Probably this is the challenge, you see. This is the challenge, that when you get money coming in this way, if you are not doing your projection work, the thing turns into its opposite.
Yeah.
And this is the challenge for everybody. You don't have to be Jeff Bezos. It's the challenge for each one of us, actually, whether we're making money or lots of money or whether we're in debt. It's the same challenge at all levels.
Yeah.
And this is why I position this work of money, this taboo that we have of being so central to our collective future now as well.
I have an interesting comment from Bolalong again. Says the word love in English is a bit confusing because it means so many things to different people. Interesting.
Yeah, but it's like every word. Money means a lot of different things to different people
You're
as
right.
well.
But I mean, when we talk about love in this
Yeah.
context, I mean, what I feel
Yeah,
like we're referring
we
to
do.
is a deep sense of being where I feel seen. Because when you said family, I think that equated back to love for me, because it was almost like you moved it back to an experience. Forgetting about the word, let's just talk about the experience. Is that the experience is I'm seen and I'm seen, and I feel at peace with what's going on, and I feel safe, because there's a weird idea that we feel incredibly, not weird, it's just obvious that in that environment where we feel safe, we can explore and we can be our fullest potential. And I think, as I've seen throughout especially the last years, fear, uncertainty, doubt, like in the media especially, is so penetrating everyone's psyche that everyone is living in this constant state of adrenaline, just anxiety, because they're, how am I going to survive this?
Yep. So one of the things that must be understood, and which I came to when I was looking at the subject of money and the money system, one has to understand that the money system was actually constructed consciously on fear. And that's what we've got ingrained into our conditioning. And actually, it did, I'm not ungrateful. I've mentioned gratitude before. I'm not ungrateful for that, because that impelled our whole industrial system with the materials that we're all using now and the technology we're all using. It was built on that construction.
Yeah.
But the point is, now, if we don't get off this conditioning, we actually sabotage the whole system that we've created, which is what we're seeing happening. And that's why it's necessary to rise in consciousness and actually move off the system and move it out of fear, and now it's in my view, it's into love, to take the next step and do it even with a certain intelligence, let's call it, with the intelligence that the previous system was constructed with great intelligence as well. We just need to match the intelligence to the times right now, and it's not intelligent to be using the same system anymore. Not wise, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, there's two things, like, well, actually one thing, I felt really emotional just a moment ago, because when I hear Andy speak about the last couple of years, fear is entering everyone's psyche. I always say it's very easy to speak from that space when your life is kind of grounded and you have everything together. So then the question is, have you ever been in your life in a place where you're in complete survival mode? And then from there, how did you step out of that?
Well, I understand your question very well and very deeply, and maybe I am privileged in the sense, in many ways, that at least in my life up to now, I've never been in a situation which I would call deep crisis, in the sense that I've experienced with many people I've worked with. I've had, the most dramatic situations. I've helped people in their most dramatic situations as well. All sorts of incredibly dramatic stories, and I haven't had that experience myself. But I think in a sense I've been privileged and lucky, in the sense that I've been curious enough to put myself, as I say, in the deep end before things have happened to me in that way. In other words, I've been, I didn't need to have a deep crisis to have a fantastic transformational learning. The transformational learning for me has happened in many situations without deep crisis, But it's been like, I think it is somehow linked to my willingness, like now, to put myself into a situation where I really don't have a clue, go in and dive into the deep end. And who knows? I may have a deep crisis tomorrow. Who knows? Life, you can't tell. But I do have a deep appreciation for people. I do understand this difficulty of people or the situations in deep crisis. Now, on a surface level, you could say I did have a kind of crisis. I was down to 7 Swiss francs one time. I think I may have mentioned it in my last meeting. So for many people, that would be a deep, deep crisis point. And for me, that was a sort of crisis. But because of the way I have been, I found a solution to that. And it was a solution within. And it was a very important moment for me to search within, and discovered that I existed with 7 Swiss francs, and I wasn't about to die.
Yeah, there's 2 points there which are quite fascinating, and you said a lot in a very short time.
Yeah.
What I see is I can identify with what you said, is that the crisis doesn't need to come to you. When I left everything in Vienna, sold everything, and lived in the attic space, one might think, wow, that's a crisis. How did you, like you live like a bum for a year, right? Like, what is that? And I'm like, wow, I'm free as a bird. I kept just singing, freedom's another word for nothing left to lose, right? And fascinating is that you're right. You can let the crisis come to you, or you can create a situation which shows you how adept you are at adversity, because that's at the end what you are. You learn how to be adept in adversity.
Yeah.
Like, wow. I remembered when the Madoff scam, my dad invested in Madoff. And he put all of our money in, including my money. And, I just was there. I didn't think about it. And then the money was gone in a day. And Ronnie was like frustrated and aggravated. And then I just sat and I said, baby, and she was just, I said, I'm so grateful. That illusion that money existed gave me freedom that I would have never have taken if I didn't think I could fall back on that if everything failed. So it was this, we went from, her mindset is like oh my God, we lost all of it. And my mindset is, wow, I got 20 some odd years of delusion that just allowed me to do what I did freely. Right. And it was just a very funny shift. I slept like a baby that night, and she was aggravated that, we didn't get it out.
He made off with all the money.
Exactly. Yeah. Just, it was, but I mean, that's a good example of, in some ways, if you've made peace with it before it happens, then it happens. And it's just, if you haven't, it kind of goes back to where we started this conversation. You're back in that Buddhist world. Am I attaching to something so much so that my happiness is dependent on it? Because as soon as that happens, you're only happy if the context is right.
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 Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not lasting anyway.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. Anything coming up for you, Bambos?
No.
There was one thing I wanted to share with you, which I've loved that you told me several years ago. I might have even mentioned it on the last show, is when you said that during the Industrial Revolution, the word compensation was created because basically you were compensating for the destruction you did to your own body. So you're paid for the destruction that you've done. You're compensated for that. That idea, I realized that in the Industrial Revolution, when people were in factories, that was factually the case. You were destroying your body. But I laugh as a mentality, because even today, people have a lot of ideas that if I'm not destroying my body, exhausted, tired, if I'm not, like, I'm only deserving of the money. If I'm doing what's in my flow, I'm not deserving of the money because it wasn't hard. But if it's a struggle, then I need to get paid.
That's right. And the union demands are based on that, actually. So it's very strongly in the collective field as well.
Yeah.
So,
and that was something.
So this is with this, where we're heading, or where we're trying to head, with this is completely reversing that. In other words, almost to the point that if you're not loving what you're doing, if you're not, you shouldn't get paid, actually.
Yeah. Yes, very well
That would be
stated.
the other extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, but then they would say in the old paradigm, since I'm loving what I'm doing, I shouldn't get paid that much.
That's what
Right.
many people say.
Yeah.
Many people are, it's very sad. I find it very sad when people say that, but it is what people say. Oh, I'm enjoying myself so much doing this.
Yeah.
I don't need any money and I shouldn't get paid.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the other side of the same coin, actually. Yeah.
Bolalang writes, a crisis is only how one perceives the situation. So
Bolalang is great,
isn't he? He's our he's our third person on the sofa that is only virtually.
Yeah.
Yes. When one wants to take part in this Congress or join it, what would be the steps that they would take to do that?
So you go to our website, which is createlovein in one word, createlovein one word .business.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a button which says join now, and that takes you to a registration page. And I'd love to talk about that. Just a few words. So most big summits cost nothing, but because this is on money, this is going to cost, because we want money to be moved, and we want money to be moved with love. So what I'm suggesting, and you can read this, is that your money you put in for your ticket is like an investment. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be, it costs some money. It's actually 200 euros plus VAT for another 40 euros. Now, I'd like everybody to see this as an investment, because the Congress itself is designed not to make any profit. So depending on how many people come, if there's a surplus above the costs that we have running it, we're going to offer a return. We're actually going to return, this is one of the new things, we're going to return money to everybody proportionally with any surplus that we make here.
Beautiful.
So there's an investment in a traditional financial sense, it's investment and return.
Yeah.
And then a second thing is, we're aware that 240 euros is impossible for somebody sitting in Vietnam or in various parts of the world. And we'd like to make this available to everybody. So we've got a sponsorship scheme. For those that would like to join, they can put themselves down as sponsees, and they'll be on a list. So they have a need to be sponsored, but many people in the world have a need to actually give and sponsor. So we're going to have a sponsors list as well, and we're going to be inviting, we're not going to manage this, we'll offer some meetings around it, but we're not actually managing the relationship. We're inviting people to contact each other from one side to the other side. And the context we're setting is meeting on equal levels, because the sponsors, people who have money to give, have as strong a need as the people who need to receive. And we want to make that clear, that because you're giving, you're not sort of giving, it's not charity in the sense, you're satisfying your own need by giving.
Yeah.
And the larger context of this is that everybody in the world has somebody richer than them and somebody who's poorer than them. So there's no excuse for anybody not to give on the one hand, but also not to ask on the other hand. So there's no excuse for anybody not taking part, except that they don't want to take part. But there's no reason. I don't have enough money, for example. There's no reason for not taking part. So everybody. So this is how we're setting up, like what's known as inclusion, diversity, and inclusion. Everybody can take part in this in the whole world. And there's no reason for not taking part. If you don't have the money, you put yourself down as a sponsor. But we're even going further in our thoughts, that if you're a wealthy person, it's possible that you don't very often get given to. So you can put yourself down to be sponsored, and somebody may want to give to you. And you can have the experience as a wealthy person, you know, of being given to as well.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is to get money moving with love, actually. That's the bottom line. And away from financial calculation. At the moment, the way it's structured in our system is that you do a financial calculation and then you decide to do what to do with your money. That's what we want to get away with. That's why we're calling the subtitle, Creating Love in Business, the new bottom line. The new bottom line, the driver is love and not financial calculus or calculation. So that's what we're trying to explain. It takes a bit of time to read it, but it's on our registration page. So then you just click on the next button and you go straight into our community website, which is already active before the Congress. So people can start to install, to do things are actually already now, if they register.
Wow. Any chance that people might get more money than they've given?
Yeah, why not?
I could just see you. You've paid $240, but we've got a surplus, so you're getting back $400.
Well, no, I don't think we'll get. No. I mean, the way our accounts are set up, that won't be the case. It'll be less. But amongst the sponsorship schemes, there's no reason why people shouldn't be sponsored for their projects.
No, without a doubt.
We have all sorts of possibilities with the way we set up our platforms.
And Bolalang mentions that the challenge of being sponsored is the difficult in receiving the love.
Yes.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Bolalang.
So that's where we come into, what we discussed in our first session together.
Yeah.
Which is about reclaiming projections and so forth.
And Michelle Krantz, I'm not sure if you know this individual, but she says, love your words of wisdom, and I could listen to you all day.
Oh, how sweet. Thank you very much. I'm touched.
Michelle, I've got about 4 days of video of Peter doing the money work. So if you want those, let me know and I'll send it to you.
Aren't the recordings really bad?
They're really bad.
It's very boring.
They're the worst.
No. The quality
of your words is great, but the video is like sitting in a corner. It's just the worst. It's the worst picture of you.
He gave it to me to listen to, and I just couldn't. Like, what did he say?
Yeah. Send her to Nadia with conscious money.
Yeah, I have gotten questions about that in the past. For those that are interested in the money work, you're going to have to pronounce her name for me, Nadia
Taranchevsky.
Yeah, she's doing incredible work, taking Peter Koenig's money work, and Peter's also part of that course as well. So
and for any questions, if you go to the actual website from Peter Koenig, Create Love in Business.
Yeah,
you'll also find her there as part of the team.
Yes, createlovein.business. Yeah,
createlovein.business.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I think we'll leave you. Sometimes we do summaries at the end of the show, but I just think it's great just to be, because you're kind of part of the family, so we can just summarize saying we love you.
Yep.
And you know me, I'm so grateful for everything you've done, and I think I'm only starting to catch up with how lazy I actually am and how much I love that I'm lazy. And that's just and as you helped me learn to say, and it's fucking great. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. I love you both, and it's been really a great pleasure to spend this hour with you. Couldn't think of anything better to be doing this hour.
April 11th, the Money and Business Partnership Congress.
Till the 14th. At 2 p.m. It starts at 2 p.m., goes to 3 p.m. on the 14th. And you design your own program.
And do it. I love it. We never promote stuff, but we're doing it on the show. Do it. Just do it. See you. Love you. Till next time on
Bye.
Wonderful
Chaos. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.